Well, hello there. Welcome to my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick, getting ready to record my weekly podcast on the day that we also have our Christmas wrap-up party, you could say, for the team of Tridio. Next week, I'll take some time off, and so I want to get this one out of the door before the guests arrive, and hopefully we'll have some people joining us, but I'm not sure about that. Lots of things to talk about, fortunately, and I have even more to talk about on the walk, but I'm not sure if I will be able to record that, between now and 4 o'clock. It's 8 minutes past 3, so probably I'd better do one very well, and then we'll see about the walk. Using a webcam, so that's new. I've taken all my the stuff that I normally use, the Canon 80D, back home because I want to create in the vacation time. I want to create a better setup for vlogging, especially the Star Wars stuff, etc. So. And actually, I'm quite happy with the result. I'm using the newer drivers for Logitech, and I have to say it looks quite all right. I'm not sure how it is on your end, but it looks pretty sharp. A bit muted in colors, but that's just probably also the light, and it's not a very good camera. Hey, Borko man, welcome to the stream. So I'd better get going, and let's see if the volume is okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think I've got my show notes ready. Hello. Maybe if I click on this. Hey. I'm getting old. I thought I wrote down the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Or did I just put that in the title of the YouTube stream? That's possible. So it was the Irishman. That one. Let's see. Books. Did I have something for the books? You should have started that title with please. Which one? Please? I don't know what the title was. I've already forgotten. Oh yes, books. Books. Did I have a book? Or haven't I? Wait, what am I reading right now? Percy Jackson. But that's not the book that I wanted to review. Oh, wait a minute. I think I bought something on the Amazon store. What was it? I forgot. Which one was it? Let me go to the Kindle app. Hey, Viking Jedi. Becoming Superman. That was not the one. Skyward? I totally forgot which book. I'll just talk about books I'm going to read. Yeah. All right, where's my total library? Oh, here it is. Yeah, I'll just I'll pick some books. Oh, yeah. I've got a Star Wars related book. Whoa, what happened? Shoot, which one was it? From a certain point of view. R5-D4, I think it was. Not sure. Yeah, you see? Oh, that's another thing I need to talk about. Yeah. Star Wars week. Let's do that. And we'll take this one. We'll move it over here. And do I have any tech to review or to talk about? Join me for my weekly show. A bit demanding? No. That's what, Darth Vader would say. Join me for my weekly show. It is your destiny. You have to coerce people. Tighten your grip. Have you read any of the Sword of Truth books by Terry Goodkind? Don't think so. Sounds familiar. Is that Shannara? If it's Shannara, I read a bit of the first book. Well, actually, it's not really a first book, because it's an entire saga. Did I have a tech thingy to talk about? What? Hold on. Oh, yes, I already remember. It's just YouTube algorithms. Let's talk about algorithms. Okay, Echo Base Con. We've got the premiere. When was that? The premiere? I think it's next Tuesday already. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Excellent. We've got this one. Oh yeah, travel documentaries. Very good, very good, very good, very good. Okay, I'll talk more about my production plans in the walk. Okay, very good. Yeah. Then we've got this. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll be fine. I have enough to talk about. I think. I hope. All right, let's get going. Still not entirely cured, unfortunately. Here we go. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick, and this show is called, well, it used to be called The Daily Breakfast, then it was called The Break, then it was called The Daily Breakfast again, I think, and now it's just called Father Roderick. Maybe I should go back to The Break. Have some more about things like that to talk about in this show. But first of all, a big thank you to my patrons who have been supporting me for so much time now. Some of them are new. Others have been supporting me for many months. They help me to bring you this content, to bring it free of advertisements, and I really appreciate that. And hopefully you appreciate that too. And as I've announced in previous episodes, there are a lot of changes, all good changes that are going to happen especially for the patrons. I want to give you back even more as a patron. So I've got an interesting bit of news that I'll keep for the end of the show. You see, I'm learning to tease and to keep you glued to your, glued to what you're glued to your screen, and the earpods are now glued into your eyes, ears, eyes. No, we don't have. Wait, I'm still waiting for that AR. These AR glasses. How cool would that be? So that I can just project the show live onto your retina. Maybe a few more years before we get there. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about, so let's get going with the news.
This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
So I'm recording this on the last day that I'm at the office this year. We have our Christmas wrap-up party in about an hour from now. We've invited everyone who's been working with me on all these shows and we've organized a little bit of a get together. It's just nothing special, but it's the first time that we do a wrap up like this. And then for me, the rest of the team will have to work next week as well. But for me, my vacation starts. And yeah, I'm actually quite happy that I've been able to do what I needed to do. So no more deadlines. There's a little bit of some Christmas stories that I'm going to edit at home. That's more something for fun. There's no pressure on that. And then I can just relax. Well, it's all relative, of course, because next week, as you can imagine, is going to be on a certain level, maybe one of the busiest weeks, definitely one of the most exciting weeks of the year, because it's the week of Star Wars. And there is a lot of Star Wars happening next week. First of all, I've been invited, as I hoped. I'm still on the guest list of Disney in the Netherlands, so I've been invited to the red carpet premiere in Amsterdam. So that is going to be one of those world premieres. It's a couple of days before the official premiere in the United States. And I couldn't be more excited. My brother is going to join me again. I'm so curious to hear what he will say, because he was not a fan of The Last Jedi, to put it mildly. I'm more in the middle. It wasn't my favorite Star Wars movie, but I liked it for what it was. So really, really hoping that J.J. Abrams will bring everything together, and that it will be a very exciting closure, bring closure to the series, and in a certain way to part of my life. I mean, Star Wars has been my life since I was 8 years old. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what we're going to see. And of course, if you follow me on YouTube, which you can find over at Father Roderick, I'm going to post a spoiler-free review. And I'm pretty, if you've seen my trailer reactions where I'm jumping up and down, that's for 2 minutes of Star Wars video. Imagine how I will react once I've seen the entire movie. So make sure to be subscribed to my YouTube channel over at youtube.com/Father Roderick. That's Star Wars #1. The next Star Wars event is I'm going to be a guest at the Echo Base Con in Utrecht, which is a charity Star Wars convention that they organize every year to raise money for charity. And I've been invited as one of the guests on the Star Wars panel. So there are some well-known Star Wars personalities in the Netherlands that they've invited to, I don't know, share their passion for Star Wars. I don't know. I didn't get any questions in advance, but I'm pretty sure that I'll have something to say about Star Wars. And then the third thing that I hope to be a part of, but I still have to get in touch with my friends over at the Dutch Garrison, is going to be the Dutch Garrison premiere, where all the members of the 501st in the Netherlands will get together, some in costume, some not. And I'm still an aspiring member. I'm not really an official member because I don't have a costume yet. And I hoped to get a costume this year, but it'll be for next year. But since I've known these people for so long, usually I can join them for that as well. And then, you know, what is cooler than to watch Star Wars with the biggest Star Wars fans there are in my country. So I'm really looking forward to next week. And it's kind of, I love it that I have the time to focus just on that. Previous years, whenever there was a Star Wars premiere, I had all my work. Usually this time of year, I'm working against very strong, you know, big deadlines. So there's always this rush, this race against the clock. And then all of a sudden you have to kind of switch over to Star Wars. I remember one time when we went to the Rogue One premiere, I was so exhausted and so overworked that I forgot my glasses just because my brain didn't function properly. So I watched that entire movie without glasses. Let's say it was a little bit of a blurry experience. I was glad that afterwards I got to see it several more times. And we were sitting on the first row. That also helped. But yeah, I will not make that mistake for this movie, for the Rise of Skywalker. So that is what's ahead of me. Also really looking forward to just do fun stuff again, to have time to record a Mandalorian review instead of having to do that, you know, at midnight because work. Also looking forward to going back to my Lego adventures, I've got a few big Lego sets that I've planned for the next 3 weeks. And I have some more plans when it comes to Lego and YouTube, but I will talk about that at the end of this show. But first of all, let me give you some thoughts about the world of movies and TV series. This is also the time of year where normally, especially when I have some time off, I watch a bit more on TV. I haven't been to the movies for 2 months now. It's one of the reasons that I probably am going to stop my subscription to the local movie theater, because I don't have the time. Plus, there's so much to watch on the streaming platforms. Netflix, Disney+, Prime Video. Why would I go to the movies?
Not like movies.
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
I watched one brand new movie, and I watched one very old nostalgic movie. The first one was on Netflix, and you will probably already have heard about it. It's The Irishman, and it is a very popular movie for Netflix. I think it's really, well, you can't really talk about a box office success because it's a TV movie, but this could have been a real theater release. That's how good it is. It features a lot of very well-known, famous actors. But what makes this movie so impressive to me, and that's what I want to talk about and focus on in my initial review, because I haven't finished watching the movie yet, is this is also a technological breakthrough. And you wouldn't be able to tell it. If you watch this movie, it tells the story of a couple of mobs in a certain way, mafia members, during various moments in their lives. So you will see flashbacks, you will see the current time, they'll go back 20 years. So you've got these same characters at various ages, from, in their 30s to in their 70s. What makes this such a breakthrough is that all those scenes were filmed with the actors, with the same actors. So they didn't recast for younger actors. They solved everything digitally. Now, you know that de-aging has been all the rage in the superhero movies. Think of the X-Men, where they did that with several actors. It's also something that was very important in Captain America, the first movie, where Captain America, grows from this being this very small, unhealthy boy, turns into this muscle machine. And that was the same kind of technology that they use normally for de-aging. They use that to shrink down his body, because actually they used, when the actor was all bulked up, they had to slim him down to make a convincing portrayal of the person that he used to be. And so they used body doubles, but also a lot of digital shrinking, basically. That technology has been, evolving and evolving and evolving. There's even going to be a movie. Was it a James Dean movie that they're going to do without the actor is already dead, of course. And they resurrected him through CGI technology, kind of a bit what they did with Leia at the end of Rogue One. But they have sworn not to do that with the upcoming movie, although I'm pretty sure that there's going to be quite a bit of digital manipulation, but it's still based on real footage that they shot with Carrie Fisher. Well, here, it was the plan from the get-go to use the same actors for all the different time frames. And they already knew that they could do a lot with makeup, but you can't get rid of the wrinkles, etc., with just makeup. And so what they ended up doing was all the hair is makeup. The fringes of the hair, very, very difficult to do that convincingly. They all touched it up digitally so that it looks like real hair. And then the rest, the faces, the rejuvenation of the faces, it was all done digitally. But what makes it so special is that nothing was done in the way that they used to do this, with dots all over the face. You've seen the behind the scenes footage where, sometimes actors are carrying like a miniature camera on a protrusion from a headgear or whatever. The director said, I don't want technology to get in the way of the performances. For me, it's the performances that matter. And figure it out how you do this afterwards. And so they've been working for 4 years on this movie and used the latest technology to de-age these actors. And the result is flawless. I was watching this, and it's not just the actors; it's also the settings. So a lot of the lighting, the toning of the colors they used. This was all shot on film, and not just on one type of film, but they went so far that they took a type of film that was popular in that certain time frame. So there were different techniques, different development techniques, different emulsions, and they wanted to emulate that so that it kind of works in your mind. If you see a scene that takes place in the 70s, even the film that they used was the same kind of film that you would see in movies from the 70s. And when they switched to modern days, they use digital probably not, but much higher quality. And so even with that, they went completely as realistic as possible. But then after the fact, they had to match, of course, all the kind of the color toning. They had to make sure that the special effects were also looking as if they were part of that, of the original, what was shot originally. So they had to re-add grain, etc., little flaws, lens aberrations. I mean, I've listened to a couple of behind the scenes podcasts and also watched some stuff on YouTube, and I was blown away by the amount of technology. There is not one single shot that hasn't been digitally manipulated. But the thing is, you don't notice it at all. It's completely believable. Another thing that was really interesting to hear from the actors themselves was that they were coached by several people to make sure that the way they move matches their age. Something I never realized, that the older you get, the more your movement changes. The way you walk, the way you turn your head, even the way your eyes move is different at various times in your life. And so if you need to portray someone in their 30s, they have a different step. And if someone is 70 years old, then you walk differently. Your whole posture is different. And so there was so much knowledge behind the scenes that was put into making this believable that I'm not surprised that this movie is top of the list of so many movie lovers. And this is all just the technological side. It's incredible what they've been able to do. But then the story also really works. And as I said, I haven't finished the movie because it's a long movie, but it is really compelling television. And the actors are doing a terrific job. So this is just another example of the kind of the golden days of these online streaming platforms. This is probably a movie that would have never been greenlit for movie theaters because it took 4 years to develop. The technology wasn't even there when they started shooting. And so only a company like Netflix with deep pockets, although those pockets have been empty for many years, but they still are, one of the biggest players, so they dare to invest. Only platforms like this are making this possible. Just like Disney Plus, we wouldn't have had The Mandalorian if it hadn't been for Disney Plus. Because for Disney Plus, this is something that makes it so compelling to be subscribed to Disney Plus. Baby Yoda, but also getting something that looks like a movie, and still it adheres to the rules of good television. None of that would have been financed, I think, by television partners. And so it's awesome. All these platforms are competing, not just in terms of having the biggest catalog, but also to bring something unique to the table. And that's what really makes it so fascinating. Sometimes I'll have these coughing fits. I'm still in the final days of recovering from this bronchitis. I talk a lot. Get dehydrated and I start coughing. The other movie that I wanted to briefly mention here is an old movie, and I was so happy to find it on Disney Plus. It is a science fiction movie that I remember having seen with my parents. One of the few movies that our parents went with us. Normally they'd just drop us off, and then my mom would go shopping because she always would fall asleep during the movies and didn't really care for it. My dad, same thing. But this movie, I recall that we've seen it together as a family, and it is called The Return from Witch Mountain. And I remember that movie so well. I even drew an entire comic book myself, because at the time, of course, there was no internet. You didn't have any merchandise around these movies. And I just wanted to relive the story. And for me, the best way to do that as a kid, I always would draw comics. I made a comic of the movie based on the story that I saw. That's how much that story fascinated me. Now, it's always a little bit daunting to go rewatch a movie that you have such fond memories of, because you think, well, I'm an adult now, and well, we're so spoiled with movies nowadays. Maybe it's going to be such a disappointment to see it again. I'm happy to say that it was not a disappointment. Actually, I think I understand now much better why that movie had such an impact on me. So it tells the story of two kids, a little bit mysterious. They're orphans. They go to a school where at least the boy is being bullied. But they have these supernatural powers. So they can jump very high, or they can use telekinesis to move objects, etc. And they use that basically to defend themselves against the bullies in school. And then they're discovered by this mysterious, these evil guys, and they want to get a hold of the kid, so they have to run for it. It's just really, really good television. It's a good, compelling story. The reason that I think that I was so impressed by this movie was that I could identify with these two kids, because I always felt an outsider in primary school. I have had my share of bullies. And I was kind of more the scrawny little kid, not good at sports or anything. I could draw comics. That was my superpower, but nobody cared. And so I think that this is kind of those wish fulfillment movies. You see these kids, they're just like you, a little bit weird, a little bit, not popular at all, but they have this secret power to overcome the bullies. And I dreamt of, that's why I loved Superman so much, because I was like, how cool would it be to be like Superman, so that they couldn't harm me, they couldn't play pranks on me anymore, and I could take revenge. And so I think that is what after seeing the movie, I was like, I just could imagine. This was kind of a bit the fascination that Harry Potter has on the younger generation nowadays. It's like, what if I would have magical powers? Harry Potter is the same story. It's this orphan, and he is being bullied by his foster family. He seems a bit of a loser, and it turns out he's a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. And then he gets invited to a whole new life, and everything changes, and he becomes a hero. That was the kind of dreams that I had. That was why I was so much in love with Star Wars. Same thing, Luke Skywalker, orphan, lives on this remote planet where nothing happens. He's not popular with his friends because he's got his uncle. He's constantly telling him to help him with the harvest. He's got all his friends join the rebellion and get to do all this exciting stuff except for him. And then disaster strikes. His foster parents are killed, and that's when he follows this crazy old man and turns into a Jedi. What's not to love? I mean, that was me in my dreams. So yeah, I've got a fondness for stories like that, and I tend to always return to the same kind of stories because I can identify with just nothing. That's probably why I'm not a Batman fan now that I think about it, because Batman was the opposite of my life. I mean, Batman's a millionaire. He's got all these gadgets, and he's dark and brooding, and it's like, nah, I'm a Superman guy. I felt oftentimes like an orphan, yeah, definitely. What I wanted to escape from was this brooding darkness. I wanted to be, happy and joyful, and that's probably why I'm still overcompensating a little bit when it comes to, my approach in life. I always try to look at the bright side, try to stay optimistic, being super creative, because now in a certain way, I have superpowers. I'm not talking about being a priest, but I finally am able to realize the dreams that I had as a child. I am a filmmaker now. I'm a documentary maker. I do all this cool stuff. I'm sitting behind a microphone. I know my technology. I'm a gamer. It's everything I dreamt of as a child. And back then, thought it would always stay a dream. And now it's reality. So, yeah, reasons to be thankful for.
Catholics rock!
And in this part of the show, I always talk about churchy stuff, things that matter to Catholics and Christians.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
Today I want to talk about something sad that happened just the other day. It was the announcement that one of our main churches is going to close.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
This came a bit as a shock. As you know, secularization in the Netherlands is rampant, and more parishes have been fused together. So the parishes where I work currently, I work in 2 parishes. One is a fusion of 5 communities. The newer parish where I'm also working is a conglomerate of about 9 original parishes. So that was step number 1. The step number 2 is we have way too many buildings for definitely for our for the current community. And if you look ahead and you look at the age pyramid of our parishes, definitely we have probably like 70% of our churches is going to be superfluous in the near future. Those churches are paid by the community, the Catholic community itself. So this is different from a country like France, where the state owns the buildings and the church can use them, but all the maintenance has to be done by the state. It's also different from our neighboring churches. For instance, Germany. Germany has church tax, where basically the state gives part of the tax revenue to the churches, so they can, continue to maintain their churches and pay for their worship. In the Netherlands, we have to pay everything ourselves. And you can imagine if most of your churchgoers are older than 70 years old, that is going to be a huge financial problem in the near future. It actually already is. In my current parish where I work, and I'm just an assistant priest. I'm not the pastor or anything. So I help out in the weekends, and I love doing that, and it feels like home, but I don't have the responsibilities of the pastor. But in this current parish here in Amersfoort, it turns out we have an annual shortage, a budgetary shortage of 250,000 euros, which is totally insane. I mean, it's $250,000 every year. This accumulates, of course. The only reason that they've been able to stay afloat for the past few years was that they sold a few churches in the past, and the money they got for that was immediately put into the losses. To me, that has the moment I heard about that, I was like, I cannot understand that they can work like that. I mean, I'm running Tridio for how many years now? And before that, I was running SQPN. We have never had a deficit, ever. I don't want to be in debt, ever. I've never been in debt for my whole life. When I couldn't pay for my studies anymore, I didn't want my bishop to pay for my formation, for my priestly formation. I worked in the vacations. I just had a job, so I could pay for my studies myself. And always, every time, no matter how dire the situation was financially, I've always looked for sources of revenue so that I didn't accumulate debt. Now, I know that that's not given to everyone, but it is almost a lifestyle right now. Like in everything I do, also running Tridio, and even when we were running SQPN together with the rest of the team, I was always saving up money for to build up financial margin. And I had this rule, this golden rule, that even if everything would tumble down and would crash and nobody would listen to our podcast anymore, that we would be able to continue for a year And this is just being responsible for other people's wages. I mean, I couldn't care less. I know that if I really have no more place to stay or nothing to eat anymore, my bishop will have to take care of me. It's part of his deal of being responsible for me. But since I am responsible for the work of, you know, all the people that are gonna join me for the Christmas wrap-up party, I have to be responsible. So I cannot go into debt because it would put their lives at risk. So that is why I'm always looking for, you know, how can I work? And I don't have big sponsors. I've got patrons. They give a little bit every month. But I've worked hard to find those patrons. So and then for the TV work, we're also reduced to micro budgets. But I work so hard and I'm putting so much energy into those productions because the more I do myself, the more I can save up and the more there is financial security for the other people that I work with. So I always want to work from a position of strength. It turns out this parish has not done that. They've been just using up the money that they had from the buildings. And now the diocese has said, we're not going to do that anymore. You have to make sure that you save on your I'm not sure what the word is in English, but you don't spend more than you have. That's basically the message, which is totally normal to me. I could never be the pastor here and have the responsibility for this parish if it was operating on a loss. I would not tolerate that. I'd rather not be paid myself rather than having these losses. But anyway, the financial situation is so dire that they have decided to close another church, and it happens to be the church here next door to the office, which right now is the best church that we have in terms of this church has the most visitors, and that can be explained because this is the only church in the city that has all the sacraments every week. It's another policy of our bishop, knowing how few priests there are. He said, I want in every conglomerate of former parishes at least one church where Catholics can go, have beautiful liturgy, all the sacraments, you can go to confession, there's a mass, there's always mass. So it's kind of a guarantee of quality. So the people here around this community, the community around this church, were like, they're not going to close us down. We're going to be the last one on the list because, well, this is the place that has been designated to be they call the Eucharistic center. So we always will have mass here. The problem is, I think it had a psychological effect of for the people of, you know, well, since we don't have to worry about that, we're just going to not innovate anymore. This is a church that was built in the 50s. It's not a very nice church architecturally. It was built in very poor times. So it's all concrete. Nothing has been insulated. So this is just one of those, you know, it's a huge church. You could put a small airplane inside it. And so, because it was built in a time that energy didn't cost much. Now to heat up the church costs more than the how'd you call it when they're coming to collect the money. So it'll cost maybe $200 to heat up the church, and the money that will come in for one mass will also be $200. So that's untenable because you also have to pay all the other stuff that's going on. So they've decided and they've announced their decision to close the church and to either rent it out or sell it. We don't know yet in the next couple of years. The thing is, they didn't communicate that with the local community at all. So they heard this like the day before yesterday, out of the blue. Nobody saw this coming. And so you can imagine what the result is. I'm not sure if that has been the best approach. They deliberately chose not to involve the local community in the process of closure because they thought it would only frustrate the volunteers. It would would make it even harder. I've learned at the university that if you change something, what you first need to do is you have to defreeze it, as they call it. So this is social processes or something like that. I had a course about that. And so basically a situation is always kind of in a frozen state. It's the status quo. Say you want to change something you have first, before you start moving something that is solidly frozen, you have to first heat it up so that you can move it. It melts and then you can move it. It's like ice cubes that are frozen hard in your fridge. If you want to get them out of the little container and you force it, then you'll break everything. You'll even break the plastic. So you have to defreeze first, then you have to move, and then you have to consolidate. You have to refreeze it again in this process. Well, they basically they jump the shark. They skip the first step of defreezing, and now they're trying to break. They're trying to move, and I'm afraid that it will cause a lot of damage. In a similar way, that is exactly why in the previous episode of The Walk, I started thinking out loud about the future of the podcast that I make, the YouTube channels. I've deliberately not said anything about what I'm going to do, but I've said I want to think about this. If I just continue to do what I've been doing, it's too much work, and I'm not even sure that this is the most efficient way of reaching the audiences. So think with me, give me some feedback, let me hear your thoughts. And by inviting the community, and that happened, I got a lot of feedback on that, and a lot of very valid thoughts about this show that you're currently listening to, about what to do for the patrons, what works, what doesn't work, what people would like to see. All that helps me, first of all, to make the right decision so what if I'm moving the situation, if I'm changing the situation, what should be the priorities? What does my audience want? What is lacking, maybe? But also because I'm involving the community by inviting them to share their thoughts, and some of you have been listening for 10 or 12 years. So I want to validate that, because that can help me, but it also introduces this idea that, well, we're going to make some changes, but let's make them together. You see what I mean? So because the community is thinking with me, it helps me to discern what to do, but it also prepares the change in a certain way and gives it much higher rate of success, probably. And then once you've made the changes, you have to make sure that you consolidate it, that people can experience that, in fact, the new situation is better than the old one. And I've in the past also sometimes skipped the step of defreezing. And I wanted to change things too quickly, and then I had to basically come back and ask for forgiveness because, well, what I had in mind didn't work at all. I should have asked you if that would work for you. So change is always a very complicated process, but let alone in the church where people have lived here for decades. Some of my parishioners have helped build this church. Can you imagine what it does to them when they hear out of the blue, hey, we're going to close your church and sell it? Very, very hard. So there may also be consequences for our offices here. We don't even know that. This is part of the grounds, for instance. This is very valuable ground, or a very valuable location, because it's close to the city, and yet it's a little bit away from the historic center. This is a prime location. People would pay millions to be able to build here. So we don't know. But the moment I got word of these changes, my mind has been racing. It's like, oh my goodness, we need to think ahead. Excuse me. We need to have a plan B. What if we can't stay here next year? So where are we going? So all that is moving also a lot in my mind. That is why I'm so happy that for the next couple of weeks I have some time to think about these things and to pray about this, and involve the community also in our future plans. So that was what I wanted to share with you. Big changes ahead for this community.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
One last thing, now that I think of it. What does it do to me emotionally? This is the third church that is closed while I'm a priest here. So I've been going through this process twice already. This is the third church. This is by far the largest church that we need to close. And I kind of know that this is probably not going to be the last church that we will have to close. it bothers me because it bothers the parishioners. It is a big emotional shock. But since I've gone through this already, and I'm kind of like a missionary priest, I consider myself to be a missionary priest right now. I don't own a location. I would love to have a home, and I would love to have a situation where I can see people on a regular basis. That's not the case right now. I'm just racing around trying to do masses then here, then there. That's not very good for my soul as a pastor, because I wanted to become a priest because I wanted to know the flock. I want to know people by name. And so in that respect, it makes it harder these next couple of years, as long as we have to keep running around. On the other hand, I know that my life doesn't belong to me. I go wherever the Lord wants me to go. And so it's harder, definitely harder. But my task, my job right now is pastor, to be a shepherd for the people that are going through this process of loss and mourning. And so that's going to be probably the focus for this community. But on the whole, I'm always like, it is what it is. You know, the things I can't change, let me just accept them and pray about it and ask God, so how can I be an optimal instrument in your hands? Something totally different now. Books. I've got a book that I've mentioned before, but there is a new reason why you may want to be interested in reading it. It is a Star Wars novel, and it's written by a whole bunch of authors, some of which have written many other books for the Star Wars expanded universe. The book itself is called From a Certain Point of View, which is a genius title. And so it's a collection of short stories that take place in the world of Star Wars. One of these stories expands upon something that happens in A New Hope, so no spoilers here, where R2-D2 and C-3PO are taken prisoners, taken captive by the Jawas when they're looking for, well, wherever R2-D2 wants to take C-3PO. So they're both taken on board this sandcrawler, and then they are being sold to Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen and Luke Skywalker. And you remember that there is this scene where at first it looks as if C-3PO and R2-D2 are going to be separated for life because, well, Uncle Owen first picks the red one, R5-D4. And then R5-D4 moves a little bit slowly, and all of a sudden something explodes in the dome of this droid. And then C-3PO is, well, sir, actually that blue R2 unit is in prime condition. And that's how R2-D2 and C-3PO stay together. Now, don't you forget about this. You know, that scene. Well, actually, what they did from a certain point of view is they developed a backstory about R5-D4. Because it turns out, according to this backstory, that was not an accident that his motivator exploded. That was done on purpose. Actually, it's a beautiful story where R5-D4 is sacrificing himself to protect the mission of R2-D2. It's a brilliant story, and just a good story, nothing canon, nothing very consequential, until you watch one of those last episodes of The Mandalorian, where all of a sudden you see this familiar-looking red, white-colored R5-D4 unit. And people were like, wait a minute, isn't that? Probably it is. So if you wanted to hear more about that backstory and how R5-D4 made it to the Mandalorian series, this is probably the story that inspired the makers to bring him back. So love it when a television series kind of ties back into that expanded universe. It validates also the effort of these creative writers, and it really helps you appreciate the sacrifice of R5-D4 once you've read the novel story. This is a short story in the novel, From a Certain Point of View.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Just plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner built... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster. But there is one more thing.
There is definitely one more thing that I teased at the beginning of this episode, and that is I want to share with you what I'm going to focus more on next year, what I'm going to do for the patron supporters and with YouTube and with these podcasts. So first of all, let me reassure you, this show is not going to go away. I've been thinking about this, and a lot of people are listening to this not just to get information, but it's just this weekly contact. We're chatting, and I'm talking about the things that I'm passionate about, some of which may be interesting to you, some of which may not be. I just got feedback from one of my listeners saying, well, hey, with all the especially with this tech segment, I can make an impression on my kids because at least I know what's going on right now. So I've got a lot of feedback from people that say, well, just keep this. But don't see it just as a show that always has to be about, it has to be very much researched. It's just talk about your passion. We don't care what it is as long as we keep having this weekly contact. So that everyone says, without exception, whatever you do, keep the walk. So definitely going to keep the walk. That was in my plans already. But the only show that I get feedback on that is, well, you may want to change that, or you may want to do something else, or we wouldn't mind if that show falls away, is what the show that I record every week for my patrons. It's the after show. It's basically just me continuing the conversation that we have on the weekly show, and sometimes I will answer questions in the comments, etc., because I can't really have a dialogue with the visitors while I'm recording the show, but it doesn't really add much. It's just a little something, but it doesn't have a specific value. So that's basically a waste of time, at least to serve that as a podcast. So what is going to be the alternative? Well, I've thought a lot about this, and I think if there's one thing I would like to bring back, something that gave me joy to make, and that is also something that is pretty unique and may also work as an incentive for people to join the patron community, is what used to be called the Catholic Insider. And for those of you that are newer listeners or viewers on YouTube, that basically was a series I've done for almost 10 years, where I would record audio documentaries. Very immersive audio documentaries. So where in stereo, I would be in Africa. I would walk around. You would hear the sounds of life there, of the insects, of culture, and I would tell the story. I would just try to visualize in your mind what I was seeing. So it was kind of what I do for video as well, what I love to do, documentaries. But I would just use audio and narration. And there is not much out there. There are thousands and thousands of podcasts nowadays. And I can never compete with that. But what I can compete with, what makes the audio documentary so unique is that is a way to forget about your own world. You close your eyes and you're where I am. And it can be anywhere in the world. And oftentimes it was possible to tell stories that I could not possibly do with video, because a camera is very intrusive. A microphone, you don't even notice that it's there. And also, visual storytelling has huge post-production costs. Putting one TV show or one documentary together will take weeks sometimes of editing. That is something I cannot just easily add. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I will talk about the specifics later, but my current idea is I would like to bring back the Catholic Insider. Not sure if I will call it like that, but I want to bring back these audio documentaries, or we call them sound seeing tours. So you've got sightseeing, and this was sound seeing. And I want to start with bringing back the old series that I've recorded, some of which you've never heard. And they're no longer available online because we split up with SQPN, and SQPN has not kept them online. We've never put them back online either. So we've got travels through Spain, Ireland, the United States, Canada. I've got series in Australia, New Zealand, Africa, you name it, I've been there and I've recorded shows there. So we're going to bring those back to the lower level tier of Patreon. And then for the next tier, I am going to solidly invest in the documentaries. One of the pieces of feedback that I got is it's so frustrating to hear you talk about everything you do for Dutch television, and we will never get to see it because it's all in Dutch. Well, I've decided that I want to opt first for my online work. This is also going to have big consequences for my YouTube presence, because right now I've got one YouTube channel over at Father Roderick, and I put everything in there that strikes my fancy. That's the worst approach that you can have on YouTube, because it will destroy the algorithm. What I want to do now is to create focused channels. One is going to be what I'm actually the best in. What is my speciality? What do you think about when you hear Father Roderick? You think about Star Wars, geeky stuff, and faith. It's this intersection between faith and the world of geeks. That is my specialty. That is one I want to focus on. It's kind of The Mandalorian is part of that. So it is. It's going to be Star Wars, it's going to be superhero movies, science fiction, fantasy, everything that has to do with the world of geeks and faith, and I'm kind of the representative of the world of faith. That's going to be the main focus of that channel. And I think if I make quality vlogs, quality productions like I try to do now with The Mandalorian, I think I can grow that channel to, my aim is to grow it to 1 million subscribers. Only got 25,000 right now. I know that it's possible, but I have to choose for focus. So that's going to be the first thing. The second thing is documentaries. I've heard from lots of you that have given feedback is, please do those documentaries. Do what you do for Dutch television, but make it in English. That's going to, and that's not the same audience that will be interested in the geeky stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a second YouTube channel, and that's going to be documentary only. Maybe with some extra videos about how I make these documentaries, because there's also a lot of interest in these low budget techniques that I use. I mean, I've filmed my entire Ireland documentary with a cell phone, and I know that I can teach that to other people as well. There is a market for that. There is an audience for that. But anyway, documentaries. And then there is a third channel, and that is basically everything else. So I like to just go online and just mess around with Lego. I will never be able to have a successful Lego channel just based on Lego. It's not going to work, because I don't specialize in that. There are months that I don't have time to build Lego. There are these other things. Well, this show that I'm currently streaming on YouTube, you know, I like that. It's fun, but it's polluting the algorithm. So, but I want to create like a backstage channel in a certain way where I will put everything else. And I know that the hardcore fans will subscribe to that channel because they like that it's just like everything and nothing. But I have to separate that. So those are my plans. And then the access to the documentaries, that's going to be linked to the patronage. So because that is a lot of extra cost and extra investments that I have to do to make that a success. But again, I think that if I invest in it and I deliver the same quality on YouTube that I've been delivering to Dutch television for years, 10 years now, I've been doing this work for 10 years. If I take all that experience, all that know-how, and put it on, put it into social media channels, I think it will reach a massive audience. Definitely so much bigger audience than I'm currently reaching. That is in a nutshell what is the result of my current thought process. I wanted to share that with you here at the end of the show, basically to reassure you, to incentivize those of you that are not yet patrons but would like to become patrons. Take a look at patreon.com/Father Roderick. And soon, hopefully, this is the phase of moving, and we'll consolidate that at the beginning of the next year. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful Christmas time if you don't listen to my other shows, and I will see you somewhere online. So that's it. I have to go to our Christmas after party. So thank you so much for stopping by and for all your comments. Unfortunately, today I don't really have time to comment upon it because now I have to be the host of the party. But it's always good to see you all, and I will be back. Probably with Lego soon. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel because that's going to change. So, for instance, this streaming thing, I will move that to another channel soon. So keep an eye on the developments there and make sure you subscribe to the other channels as well. All right, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you soon.